Hey guys, um, here we are, number 4. Um, number 4, wow. And I'm just kind of scratching the surface. So, here we go again, you know, surviving narcissism and abuse. And, I really thought I was done talking about baby daddy. And, lo and behold, no. A lot of things I forgot. And it's really, really hard dredging up things I forgot and reliving the pain and riding that roller coaster of, not being good enough and the abuse. Baby daddy. Okay. I can't tell you how many phones we went through because he would get mad at me and yank them out of the wall or throw them across portables. He would throw across the room and, dents in the walls from the broken phones. The doors that would get sprung because he was slamming them. And he was vicious. He would get angry and say the most horrific things, and then 5 minutes later he felt better and it's like, oh, honey, 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 and it's like, oh my god, leave me the hell alone. The big thing I forgot to say was, while we were together, I decided I wanted to go back to school and I wanted to get my degree, and he made that really tough. Really, really tough. And he never picked fights on weekends. And he never picked fights during the week. He would always make sure it was the day I had a paper due, the day I had a presentation to do for school. He'd pick fights. He would come home late. I'd be waiting to go to school, and he wasn't coming home to take care of the kids. And we had study groups during the weekend, and I had to work, and Sundays was my only day off, as a family. So I would ask that we had a study group on Sunday, and he would be standing in the garage door waiting for me to come home. I had inconvenienced him because he had places to go. He would golf on Sundays with his friends, and that was our only day off as a family. So it was clean the house, do the laundry, do the yard, have study group, and it wasn't his job to be there, for the family. He wasn't there for me. I had to be there for him. So during this time, we decided we were going to go to couples therapy. And one night, thank God, the kids stayed at my mom and dad's because we had a late evening appointment. And on the way home, he was so livid that the therapist wouldn't say that I was right and he was, no, he was right and I was wrong. She wouldn't say that. And he was so angry. He said it was a bashing session for him. And he was wrong, and he really wanted her to say everything was my fault, and she wouldn't. So he got out of the car and he walked home. So a little while after he got home, he was still ranting and raving, and in and out of the the garage door would go up, it would go down, it would go up, it would go down, and he's ranting and raving, and my next door neighbor heard him, and it was embarrassing. And because I didn't apologize, I lay down on the bed. I was exhausted. He came and sat down on the floor next to me, and he was on a medication, and he started swallowing every pill to commit suicide. And I sat there and I watched, and I was so out of it. I tried to call the suicide prevention number, and I kept on misdialing, so I just hung up the phone and I sat there and I watched him. And he said, okay. He said, I'm going to get in the car now and I'm going to go park someplace and they're going to find me dead. Well, just like everything else he was really good at, he couldn't even commit suicide. He ended up throwing up all the medication, and it was a horrible night. And I had a presentation and a paper due the next day, and I didn't go to class. I got a hold of the professor and told them what happened, and I was very thankful that he accepted everything afterwards. And it was my fault. It was my fault that I pushed him over the edge. So I guess the last thing of any importance is when he left, I don't remember if I said this the last video. He signed over the house to me. He gave me complete sole custody of the kids just to let him out. He packed up, a moving van, and we took the kids out to dinner. It took him 15 minutes to say goodbye. And the next day, I saw the neighbors, and they went, "Wow, that was strange." And I said, "What happened?" They said, "He came over and he sat here 2.5 hours saying goodbye to everybody. And, he didn't have a choice. You drove him to leave and divorce, and you won." And I went, okay, I'm sorry, he put you through that, but he's gone now. No big deal. So yeah. So there we go. So baby daddy's gone. I joined a few websites. I dated here and there. And then I decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. So I stayed home and I worked full time and went to school. And ironically enough, I never finished. I'm 9 units away from my degree and I haven't gone back. So one of these days, maybe by the time, I got another year and a half, for my 60th birthday, maybe I'll wear a cap and gown again. So all this time, I stayed home, I worked full time. I was a mom, so homework and baseball and dance and swim and water polo and gymnastics, and that was my job. Fighting with mom, that never quit until mom got sick. Sorry. Until mom got sick, and it was quick. It was really quick. In September, she didn't feel good. She told the doctor she wanted the test for ovarian cancer, and she had the test, and they didn't say it was positive. It was just abnormal. So she had she said she could hear water when she touched her stomach. She could hear water. So she told the doctor, so they ordered a biopsy, and they drained 7.5 liters of fluid off her stomach, and the doctor came out of the room and shook his head. So she went that day right into the hospital, and they told us that she was going to have to go to a nursing home. We couldn't take care of her at home. It was too much. So we took her to the nursing home. And she was there about a week before we saw the oncologist. The oncologist came in and he said, okay. He said, it's cancer and we don't think it's operable. So, we're going to make you comfortable. And she said, okay. So that was Monday. Tuesday, the nursing home doctor came and he told her that they've looked at everything, and judging by the fluid that they drained, it was inoperable. It was too far gone, and they were giving her less than a year. And they would allow a few visits for her to come home to, settle her affairs. And, was she in pain? Yes. They started her on morphine. And that Tuesday night was when I saw her. And, we visited and she told me what the doctor said. Dad had already told me, but we wanted her to tell me. And my son had a orchestra recital that night, so I couldn't stay. We had to go. And that was the last night we talked. And that was the night I had lost a lot of weight, and that was the night she said to me, you need to exercise, your ass is sagging. Those were the last words I heard from my mom. So anyway, she was gone Sunday morning. On the 12th of December. And between work and the kids, it was my full-time job now to take care of Dad. And I wasn't going to let him be one of those statistics of, the spouse that dies within, the first year of losing theirs. So we went on drives and went everywhere. I mean, we went everywhere I could take him. And then he started to slow down, and my son called me at work one day and he said, Mom, Grandpa can't take me to the doctor anymore. He stopped on the freeway because he got lost and turned around and went home because he couldn't remember how to get Eric to the doctor. And that was, I started noticing more and more he was repeating himself, but that was okay. He was still walking and he was still vibrant, and we could, still get around and, still go away. We went on a cruise. We went to Hawaii. We were having a good old time. So 8 years ago, I officially retired from my job. And, I was kind of glad because was that the year we went on our final vacation that June? That was our last big vacation before Dad started really slowing down. So I retired in June, and I had been dating a really nice guy, and, come September, I got tired of playing games, and it wasn't going anywhere, and at that point I thought, here I am, I want a little more than what you're giving me, and I told him so, and that was it. We were done. It was over. And in October, I met George. Sitting outside Starbucks. And I thought it was a joke when he asked a friend for my phone number. I thought, what's a guy like him looking at someone like me for? I'm older, I'm fat, and here's this very well groomed, leather shoes, cashmere, gold, and she gave him my phone number. He called. We went out once, we went out twice. And I have to admit, back then, I was rather naive. I was. I knew the world of what I had seen and what I had experienced, and I thought I was pretty savvy and I wasn't that stupid. And I got sucked up into this guy paying attention to me and taking me out, and being, very complimentary. And I should have listened to the bells and whistles. And, back then I didn't know what the term narcissistic personality disorder really meant. It was like, oh, you look in the mirror a lot, and oh, you're, self-absorbed. And I didn't know the implication of how ugly and dangerous it was, and love and hope and caring wasn't going to fix it. It's not fixable. I didn't know that's what my mom was. I didn't know the term for what baby daddy was. I I was flipping through some of George's medical records, and there was a psychiatric report, and it said narcissistic personality disorder. I didn't understand at that time what that meant. If you see that, run, 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 run. So I didn't. And 8 years ago, I didn't understand what people meant by when you go out on a date, you watch how they treat the wait staff. I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand that, you know, excuse my language, but, he's a motherfucker to the wait staff. I didn't understand. Right then and there, I should have called it quits and walked away. I didn't understand that, him being so rude to the sales staff in stores. I mean, it was embarrassing and disgusting. Oh, I know now. I know now. I mean, you act 1/10 of the way he did. Later days. You're done. You're gone. That's it. So we started dating, and I started spending more time with him. And he'd come to the house to visit. He met my dad. I didn't know that my daughter knew who he was from being a barista at Starbucks. She was in another state at the time. And when I told her I was seeing him, she just went, oh, okay. Well, she never told me what an SOB he had been there. And we would go out and people would say things to him and he'd go, well, don't you know who I am? And I'm going, am I missing something? Don't you know who I am? It's like, who is this guy? I mean, what am I missing? So he started telling me stories about growing up and his family and, do I believe some of it? Don't I believe some of it? But, I chose to believe it because I never thought that somebody was going to lie to me and make up these stories the way, he did. I'm just like, wow. So he started telling me stories about his situation, and, I believed him, and everything didn't add up. Sorry. nothing added up. And I was trying to make sense out of everything and, piece everything together. And that following spring, he took me on vacation, and I met his son and daughter-in-law, who to this day I adore, love with all my heart. But now that we're not together, of course, they have to be on his side, which, I get. We're still on friendly terms and, talk occasionally. I'm still invited to visit anytime I want, but, you know, they belong to him, and I get it. So, George, we would travel, and I ate what he wanted to eat. I watched what he wanted to watch on TV. I listened to the music that he wanted to listen to. I had to be available for him physically, daily. His needs had to be met, or you couldn't deal with him. So, we had a very volatile first year. He would get mad and tell me to get out, and I would leave, and then he'd show up the next day, with flowers, or, he'd take me out shopping, and the minute he'd get mad at me, everything was gone. So, the year after, he came to me after almost the first year and said he was starting to have financial problems. Could I help him out a little bit here and there? And I said, yeah, sure. He was in the middle of a court case, and, he said, I love you, and everything will be taken care of, and, you're never going to want for anything, because, when everything is settled, I'm going to take care of you. This is for life. And I was stupid enough to believe it. So I was helping him out with rent, and then the following year, he took me to meet his whole family. And our first day there, he got in a fight with his brothers, and it was ugly, and his brother said to me, he hugged me and kissed me on the forehead and said, I wouldn't want to be you for anything in this world. Oh, but before that, we had gone shopping, and he said that he wanted me to have jewelry and a ring before he introduced me to his family. So, ring, bracelets, necklace, earrings, clothes. And he bought the plane tickets. And I had said something to him that made him angry. He took the ring off my finger, took all the jewelry, took all my clothes. The next day, he returned all the jewelry. I don't know what happened at the jewelry store. All I know is I found out from them that he was asked never to step foot near that store again. So my plane ticket was gone, my jewelry was gone, most of the clothes were returned, and that was it. I thought, okay, we're done. So then he called and said, I want to meet, let's go out for a drink. He said, I still want you to go. I'm going to get another plane ticket. And I'm like, ugh. I said, okay. So the day before we left, he went on a huge shopping spree for himself and came back with a ring for me again. None of the other stuff but the ring, because I had to have a ring on my finger and I picked out the ring, okay? Don't get me wrong. We had looked at jewelry stores and his taste was gaudy, and I found a ring that I fell in love with and I picked it out and I said, if I were ever going to have a ring, this is the ring that I want. Very plain, very simple, pave, all me. So that's the ring that I got. And I looked at it and it wasn't perfect. It had some really crappy diamonds in it, and I pointed them out to him, and he said, well, when we come back, I'll have it fixed, which he never did. So we went, I met his family, and then not the next year, but the year after, we went again. And, I'm not even talking about the fights and the things that he said to me. He made it very clear that when we met, I was not anything that he ever wanted or he would look at, take a second look at. It was the voice of God telling him that we were meant to be together. And I think he saw a sucker a mile away, and that was me, and that was it. So we started living together, and I would spend nights with him, and I would go back to my dad's house every day, and the kids were older. Emily wasn't well, my daughter wasn't home. My son was still with my dad. And I would go home every day and cook and clean and grocery shop and pay the bills and check on everything, and at night I would go back and sleep at George's. We got into a fight one night, and he told me to get out of the car, and I walked home, and I didn't see him for 2 days. And when I did see him, he had been to the casino, and he was feeling sorry for himself, and he blew his savings account. So that was the first time. And the second time, he felt sorry for himself when we had a fight, and he went to Tiffany and bought himself jewelry that he couldn't pay for, and Dad and I bailed him out. I should have told him to take it all back, but I was stupid. So girls, if you're going through this, run, 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 run. So as we get older, our body starts to betray us, and parts weren't working the way they should, and hormones were betraying me, and I wasn't feeling well enough to keep up to his daily needs. And I begged him one day, please, can I just, let everything, I had been to the doctor, told him what was wrong, and he stood there and looked at me, and he said, you're disgusting. You make me want to vomit. And there was nothing. I was worn out. My hormones were off. Just please just leave me alone for a few days. And I was disgusting, and I made him want to vomit, and I was stupid and I was naive, and he would always tell me, if you want to leave, go ahead and leave. He says, leave, go ahead. There's a million other women who would love to be in your place because you don't know how lucky you are. I never stopped to look at him and say, you motherfucker, do you know how lucky you are to have me? I cooked, I cleaned, I paid the bills. I was there for all his legal issues. I held his hand along the way. I took the abuse, and it wasn't good enough. So he went home to be with his family for a while. He thought he was going to move home, and we were going to have a home there and a home here, 6 months there, here, 6 months there, whatever. And I went to visit because his family was having a celebration of life for their mom. So I went out to be with him, and I was supposed to be there 3 or 4 weeks. And he was so involved with his issues, I ended up sitting in the timeshare that he had. It wasn't a timeshare. There's a name for it out there, but it's kind of like a timeshare. And so he had it for most of the time I was going to be there. It was a lovely place. So he left me alone and then came and said, okay, you've got 15 minutes to get ready. We're going to my brother's for dinner. And I said, why do you always do this? You leave me alone all day, then you make these plans and, at the last minute. And he got mad and he spit at me. And with his spit in my hair and on my face, I went and I grabbed my phone and I called the airline and I asked them if they had a flight out that night. And she said no, everything was booked. And she heard him yelling at me. And she said, can you get to the airport in an hour? And I said, yeah, I think I can. And she said, I have a seat for you. She said, get to the airport. You need to get out of there. And I did. So I packed up my bag and I said, I'm going to go downstairs and have the timeshare manager give me a ride to the airport. And he says, no, 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 no. He says, I'm taking you to the airport because I want to make sure you get there. I want to make sure you get out of here. I never want to see you again. You're never allowed back here. I don't want you having anything to do with my family. You're nothing. So we got to the airport and I got out of the car. He went to the trunk, he took my suitcase, he threw it to the ground, and security came running to make sure I was okay. And they told him to leave, which he did. And I called his kids from the airport and told them I was leaving. I didn't get a chance to see them. And that visit there, he got in trouble a couple times. The police had picked him up once for public nuisance, for screaming in the streets and attacking a family member. It was embarrassing. And we were in a store and I was trying to shop and he wouldn't let me handle my own issue there. So he came in and had a fit and the police were called, and we've been thrown out of 3 or 4 restaurants because of him. The police have been to his apartment because of jokes that he's made about, being a hitman or having a gun. And you don't do that. That's not the kind of humor that people put up with these days. So, he never listened to anything that I had to say. He had some major legal issues and I tried to help him and he wouldn't listen. And it ended up biting him in the butt. So he came home one time and I let him stay in my dad's house. And he didn't get out of bed for almost 9 months. And I had to serve him in bed. He sat in front of the TV. And all this time, I was taking care of my dad. I was up with my dad, and before he moved in, he had his own apartment, and he was staying at my dad's house one night, and my dad was almost 90. In fact, was my dad 90? And he was going deaf, and he was like a baby. His schedule and his timetable was all mixed up, so he would be up at night and sleep during the day. So George was trying to sleep, and I crawled into bed, and the TV was loud, and my son and my dad were talking, and George got so angry that he got up, he pulled the ring off my finger and said, "You don't deserve this," and slammed the door to the bedroom, slammed the door to leave, and I never put that ring back on my finger again. And that's the ring that's now on his new wife. Okay, here we go. 35 minutes. Now you're getting a taste for George, which I'll continue in number 5. More about George. Okay, again, have a great evening. This is a face of narcissistic behavior, not on mine, on theirs. This is a face of surviving abuse. You see people walking down the street, you don't see the scars. You don't see what's gone on in their lives. If you see somebody, give them a smile, you don't know how much that's going to mean to them. You don't know. You don't know until you do. So, okay, guys. Number 5 next week. More about George and how I got out and how I got to today. I've got a new motto, and I think this is what got me to today. It's, you better start, hurry up. You better start living, because if you don't, all you're doing is dying. And that's what I was doing. I was dying every day. And I'm not. I decided that I wanted to live. So keep that in mind. All right, guys. Love you all. Have a great Labor Day weekend. And I'll see you next week. Bye.